Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at Academy's 1:48 scale TBM-3 Avenger. Going to be doing this one in a little bit of a different scheme, so I hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. So, most aircraft kits start in the interior. This one doesn't differ. Here you can see me cementing the cockpit floor with all the radio boxes and everything to the ceiling of the bomb bay. It does go in there once I get it in, but I have butterfingers, so I couldn't get it in at first, but it does go in. Moving on now, you can see me cementing a bomb rack to the roof of the bomb bay, or I guess the ceiling of the bomb bay. This is a pretty straightforward process with a little bit of Tamiya extra thin. There's a few of those that go on either side. You can see them all there now. Here I am fitting a bulkhead onto the little bit of plastic there. This forms the front wall of the bomb bay. There you can see that. And you can see all of the bomb racks. Here I'm fitting a bulkhead to the interior. This has the headrest as well for the pilot. So this kit was originally tooled by Accurate Miniatures, but Accurate Miniatures isn't around anymore. They sold all the rights to these kits and all the moldings to the kits to Academy. So if you want to build one of these kits, you can still find them. They're Academy now. They're owned by Academy now. The molds are. Here you can see I'm bending the sidewall. Accurate Miniatures utilize this technique of bending plastic parts. It's really cool. I've never seen it done before. I wouldn't mind seeing it again because it was actually really interesting to do a kit with a lot of parts that had to be bent. And this kit has a few parts that are required to be bent, like I think the bomb bay doors needed to be bent as well. But it's pretty cool stuff. So here I am starting my black basing technique. Black basing is definitely a staple on the channel. I love the effect that it gives. So we're using our interior green color. I believe this is AK's, or not AK's, sorry, I think it's the Vallejo Model Air Chromate Green. It's a beautiful color, it matches the color really well. So just black basing that all down, and then we'll go over with our uniform coat, as I do with most of my kits. Pretty easy process. It's a very, very good entry-level technique to get a little bit of tonal variation without having to whip out a few different colors. So here I am going over the cockpit, or the interior I should say, with that interior green color, the base coat now, because the black basing is done. Very straightforward process here. You guys have seen it on the channel before if you're a regular, and if you are a regular, thank you. I really appreciate the support. Anyway, so getting this all nice and painted up now, just blending that effect in to my liking. Interesting thing about the TBM Avenger is the cockpit was actually a darker shade of green than the rest of the interior. I'm not sure why Grumman did this, so if anybody knows, please do let me know. I'd love to learn more about this aircraft. Definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite bombers of World War II. It's more of a torpedo bomber than anything, but I just love the look of the aircraft. It's a very chunky, thick, beefy aircraft. It's loud. I love it. So here you can see me spraying down that darker color. I think I just used Vallejo's olive green. It's a bit of a darker green. Comes out of the bottle quite thick though, so I just thinned it down with a little bit of tap water just to allow it to flow through my airbrush a little better. Just getting that all sprayed up now in a uniform coating. Not going to be doing any black basing with this. Here you can see me painting up some of the radio boxes in flat black. I think it's AK's smoke black. That's another staple on the channel here. I love that black color. I use a few different brands of paint when I'm doing my models. I don't really stick to one brand. I try to find whatever paint matches the color that I want best, regardless of what brand it is. And I love experimenting with different brands of paint, so that's why I do that instead of just sticking to one brand. I do a lot of brush painting with AK paints just because they're a little bit thicker and they dry pretty quickly, so you can put multiple coats on with the brush instead of having to wait. I use Vallejo Model Air a lot for airbrushing just because of the flow properties that it has. It's awesome. Anyway, so here you can see me painting up some wires with just a sharpened sprue, painting that up with Insignia White. That's the Model Air Insignia White. Got a little bit of white on the radio box there by accident, but I get that wiped off after. Let's see what's coming up next. Okay, so here's the two fuselage halves. In the bomb bay, I painted up some wires as well. Here I am fitting the pilot's seat into the cockpit. It attaches to the bulkhead. Here's some more radio boxes in one of the side walls, but in the cockpit, that was the left side, I believe. Here's the right side sidewall. Looking pretty good. There was no cockpit decals for this kit, so everything was hand painted by myself, but as I've said before, hand painting is a very important skill to have as a modeler, so I wasn't going to complain about having to practice it. Here you can see me putting in some masking tape seatbelts. The kit comes with decal seatbelts, but I feel like if you have a seatbelt as a decal, it doesn't really look like an actual seatbelt. There's no volume to it. It's just flat. It looks like a 2D picture, which is essentially what it is. So I just figured that I'd add some masking tape seatbelts to add a bit of extra volume and a bit more dimension to the seat. Here I am painting up the seat. I'm using this khaki brown by AK. It's the Gen 3 paint. Love brush painting with these. Pretty straightforward process here again. So now we're going to hit the cockpit with a wash. At this point it's been given a gloss coating. So I'm just using a black wash by AK. This is actually a landing gear wash, but I like the black color that it has and it disperses itself into the surroundings really easily. So I just decided I'd use it on the cockpit. And it came out looking good, so that's all I'm really worried about. Here I am fitting the main instrument panel in place. That little plastic part, the sidewall that folded over that I showed you earlier, actually broke off. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I just glued it onto the sidewall and it looked fine. Here you can see I'm fitting that whole cockpit assembly into one half of the aircraft. It looks pretty good. And here are both halves of the fuselage glued together. You can see that little bit of tape there by my pinky down on the bottom. I could not sort that seam out for the life of me. It wouldn't glue together, and I couldn't fill the gap no matter what. I don't know why that was so hard to deal with, and I don't know why I couldn't sort it out, but I do apologize for that. You can't really notice it too much in the end of the build though, so I'm not too worried about it, but yeah, I do apologize for that. So here you can see me painting up the gear reduction housing with an intermediate blue. It's like a grayish blue color. Looked good for the gear reduction housing, so that's what I used, and you can see all the ignition wires and everything are painted up there in that khaki brown as well. So unfortunately I lost all of the footage of gluing the wings together and putting them on the aircraft, so I do apologize for that. But pushing forward, we're not going to let that stop us. Here you can see me doing my same black basing technique that I normally use on the bottom half of the aircraft with an an insignia white color with a little bit, I think it was like a drop of that interior green color mixed in, just to give it like a green, white, gray kind of color. And that's because I'm going to be doing this scheme as a British Grumman Tarpon Mk.1. That was the British version, the export version of the Avenger. Absolutely love this aircraft, and the reason I decided to do that was because the Tarpons had the invasion stripes, and I have never painted invasion stripes with my airbrush before. I used to brush paint them before I had an airbrush, but they never really came out that good, so I really wanted to try airbrushing them, and you'll see at the end of the build I don't think they came out too bad. So just getting the uniform coating of that insignia white with a bit of green painted over now. It's a bit speckly coming out of the brush because it's a bit thick, but that's exactly the effect that I wanted. I just wanted to make it look a little bit more speckly, and like some of the paint had been bleached and faded in different areas. Obviously, the paint on the bottom of an aircraft isn't going to fade the same way the paint on the top of an aircraft would, because it doesn't really see the sun on the bottom. But I still wanted to get a bit of that faded effect. So here you can see the final effect. Looks pretty good. Moving on to the upper surfaces now, the Tarpons had this really, really nice looking camouflage pattern on the top. They used like a British green and a bluish color, kind of an unknown blue color. The best color that I found to match this was actually a intermediate blue, so that's what I'm using here. Going to be doing the entire upper surfaces of the aircraft, or the entire upper surface of the aircraft in this intermediate blue, and then I'll be doing the green camouflage over that. So here you can see I'm just doing my same black basing technique, and then we'll get that sprayed up in the uniform coating. So here you can see the uniform coating was put down. Didn't show you guys that just because I already showed you the effect on the bottom and it's the exact same technique. As I've said before, I'd get pretty bored if I saw the same technique in a video over and over again. So starting with the camo now. At first I was spraying I believe it was AK's reflective green which I find to be a pretty good match, but this paint had a really weird problem in my airbrush. It just would not spray no matter how thin or how thick it was. So eventually I moved on and decided to spray with an AK, or not an AK, sorry, with a Vallejo olive green, the same color that I use in the cockpit, and that color actually turned out to be a lot better of a match to that British green color. So I'm not going to complain about that at all. It actually worked out in my favor. So here you can see that camo is done, and I masked off the invasion stripes. Going to be painting an insignia white first. No green in this one, just the plain insignia white. Very, very nice white color for invasion stripes, because it's not a perfect white, it's kind of an off-white, it's a bit more beige. It's like a beige white, more white than beige obviously, but it gives like a dirty kind of white effect. And obviously the invasion stripes would have only been painted on the night before the invasion, so they wouldn't have looked very good. You'll see some reference pictures of ground crews actually painting them on with mops and buckets because that's all they had available. So invasion stripes themselves wouldn't have been very uniform and very good looking. They would have just been super sloppy and it's like done up super fast. So here you can see I masked off the roundel. On this kit, it obviously didn't come with Royal Air Force roundels because it's an American Avenger kit, so I had to mask them off and paint them. It didn't come out too bad on the wings, but the fuselage is a different story. As you can see here, I wasn't really quite sure about how I felt about them. They weren't perfect circles, the paint didn't go down too well. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I'll definitely be doing this effect again in the future. I had a really, really fun time masking them off and painting them, especially with those invasion stripes. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye out for that in the future because I'll definitely be doing it again. Getting the landing gear legs super glued in place now. I actually glued this in the wrong side by accident, so here you can see I flipped them. Here you can see we're putting the wheels on. Pretty straightforward process here with a bit of super glue just to hold them in place. So moving on now, we're going to be putting a wash over the entirety of the aircraft, same colored wash for this one because all the colors are fairly light. Going to be using the same wash as I used in the cockpit, that landing gear wash, but that's just because it's super thin. Capillary action takes it into the panel lines really well and it looks good, so that's why I'm using it. So at this point now the wash has been put all over the entirety of the aircraft and the final matte coat was put on, so we can remove the masking. Always a nice part of the build, very, very fun, very satisfying, but it's also a bit nerve-wracking because you always have the mindset of, oh, did the masking tape do its job? Did any varnish get up underneath the glass? Are the lines nice and crisp? But overall it's a very, very nice and enjoyable part of the build. Taking the masking tape off really cements the build. It really brings another level of life to the build because you can see inside the cockpit. It looks like the glass is there. You know that you're kind of coming to the home straight of the build when the masking tape comes off. It's always good fun. So here I am putting the ball turret in place. Pretty straightforward process. It was a little bit finicky to get it in, but we do get it there. And here you can see I'm cementing the cockpit windows in the open position. The cockpit windows on or I should say the cockpit glass on the Avenger didn't actually open like a traditional canopy, they actually slid back. I mean, some canopies obviously slide back, but they slid back in the sense that it was two window frames instead of the whole canopy sliding back. Painting up the propeller now. Apologies about the out of focus camera there at the beginning. So I have the tips masked off, or I should say the blade masked off to expose the tip, and I'm going to be painting it in an insignia white in preparation for the yellow. Always, always, always put a white base under your yellow. It's never going to go down if you don't have a white base under it because yellow is a very light color. It's very thin. It's a very, very hard color to work with unless you have a light base underneath it. So just keep that in mind if you're painting a yellow color. So at this point now we can finish painting up that silver on the propeller. The rigging can be secured, the propeller can be glued onto the aircraft, and that finishes up this build. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very, very much for watching. The support is greatly appreciated. I really hope you guys enjoyed this build. It was a little bit different to how I normally go about my builds in the sense of painting on the markings instead of using a decal, but I really enjoyed it and I can't wait to use it again. But again, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very, very much for watching. Enjoy the final photos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.